Every shooter thinks they know what matters most in a fight: size, caliber, reputation. But here's the truth nobody wants to admit. The deadliest round might be the one you've ignored your whole life. The .22 Magnum doesn't look intimidating, yet when you see what it does in real tests, you'll start questioning everything you thought you knew about self-defense. So let's break it down. Why this so-called little cartridge carries some very big secrets, starting with the kind of speed that rewrites the rules. Reason 1, the velocity factor. When people dismiss the .22 Magnum, they forget one thing: speed kills. Out of a rifle this tiny rimfire launches bullets at nearly 2,000 feet per second. Even from a handgun, it pushes 14 to 1,500. That puts it in the same conversation as intermediate rifle rounds, but with a fraction of the recoil. Compare that to the 9mm, which rarely tops 1,150 feet per second, and you start to see why velocity changes everything. Energy doesn't rise in a straight line with speed. It squares. That means a lightweight bullet at blistering velocity creates far more destructive potential than its size suggests. In ballistic gel, the .22 Magnum produces temporary cavities 3 to 4 inches across. That shockwave damages tissue and blood vessels well beyond the path of the bullet. And unlike many calibers, the .22 Magnum keeps velocity consistent across platforms. Chop a .223 down to pistol length and you lose 30% of its speed. With the .22 Magnum, short barrels still deliver fight-stopping velocity. Add in its tendency to cut straight through barriers like glass or plywood with minimal deflection, and you realize this is not a rimfire to laugh at. It's one to respect. But speed alone won't save you if you run out of ammo when it matters most. Which brings us to the next advantage that changes the entire conversation. Reason 2, the capacity advantage. Capacity changes the math in a fight. The Kel-Tec PRM-30 loads 30 rounds of .22 Magnum into a package lighter than most empty service pistols. That's double what Glock 19 offers and weighs less. And in other options like Smith & Wesson M&P .22 Magnum with 30 rounds or Rock Island's XT-22 with 14 and a 1911 frame, and you start to see a pattern. Manufacturers are finally treating this round like it belongs in serious platforms. Why does capacity matter? Because under stress, accuracy plummets. Department of Justice studies show trained police officers hit less than 30% of the time in real gunfights. Civilians hit even less. More rounds means more chances to land crucial hits when your hands shake and adrenaline floods your body. Even in compact revolvers, the .22 Magnum wins. A snub nose and .38 Special usually gives you 5 shots. The same frame in a .22 Magnum, 8 shots. That's a 60% increase without adding bulk. In a world where every bullet might count, having extra in the chamber isn't a luxury, it's survival insurance. And yet, capacity means nothing if the bullet's impact is weak. So the real question is, when a .22 Magnum actually hits flesh, what does it do? Well, that brings us to the next point. Reason 3, the wound channel reality. Forget the myth that .22 Magnum just pokes holes. Modern defensive loads like Federal Punch and Hornady Critical Defense prove otherwise. In gel tests, penetration often lands between 12 and 14 inches, squarely inside FBI standards. But the real surprise isn't how deep it goes, it's how violently it tears through tissue. Thanks to high velocity, the .22 Magnum doesn't travel in a neat, narrow path. It destabilizes, tumbles, and transfers energy in waves. The result is a temporary cavity 3 to 4 inches wide, far wider than its 22-inch diameter suggests. That shockwave rips vessels and stresses organs that weren't even in direct contact with a bullet. Recovered bullets tell the story too. Hornady's flex tip expands to around .36 caliber on impact, nearly doubling its size. Federal Punch retains its weight while mushrooming consistently through barriers. This isn't the old varmint ammo your grandfather carried. These are purpose-built defensive rounds designed to wound much like bigger calibers. In side-by-side gel comparisons, the .22 Magnum often outperforms 9mm FMJ in tissue disruption, but it may not crush like a .45, but it slices, tumbles, and expands in ways that turn skepticism into respect the moment you see the gel block split open. But creating a devastating cavity is one thing. Maintaining that performance when barriers get in the way is another. And that's exactly where the .22 Magnum pulls off its next surprise. Reason 4. Barrier penetration. Real-world offense rarely happens in a clean shooting lane. Glass, plywood, car doors, barriers change everything. This is where the .22 Magnum surprises skeptics. Its high velocity and light bullet profile give it a tendency to stay straight, cutting through obstacles with less deflection than many heavier handgun rounds. In windshield tests at 15 yards, .22 Magnum loads like Federal Punch kept groups within 3 inches. By contrast, 9mm and .40 S&W often deflected, keyholed, or veered unpredictably. That stability means your aim translates more faithfully even when the environment isn't perfect. Lightweight projectiles also resist the ricochet and tumble issues that plague slower, bulkier rounds. Instead of glancing hard off glass at sharp angles, the .22 Magnum often punches through on target. For close-range defense, inside vehicles or around cover, that reliability matters more than caliber size. Imagine needing to stop a threat through a car window. Would you trust a round known to drift or one that cuts straight? Reason 5. Recoil and control. Accuracy under pressure is difficult, and heavy recoil makes it worse. This is where the .22 Magnum proves its worth. With such a mild impulse, shooters of all skill levels can stay on target, recover quickly, and send accurate follow-up shots in rapid succession. Side-by-side comparisons make the point clear. A 9mm service pistol rises noticeably with each shot, forcing you to fight the muzzle back down. Switch to a .22 Magnum platform like the Smith & Wesson WMP, and the difference is immediate. The sights barely leave the target, and the gun settles almost instantly after every round. That means higher hit probability when adrenaline floods your body and fine motor skills begin to fail. Defensive trainers know placement wins over caliber size every single time. In drills, new shooters often land clean hits center mass with .22 Magnum, while larger calibers scatter across the target. Recoil management isn't about comfort, it's about surviving the fight. A firearm you can truly control gives you confidence, and confidence keeps rounds where they need to be. The .22 Magnum delivers that control better than most of its so-called bigger competitors. Reason 6. Cost and training value. Skill with a firearm fades fast, and studies show accuracy and reaction times begin to decline only after 2 weeks without practice, and the drop-off is significant after a month. That means regular training is essential, and training requires ammunition you can actually afford to shoot. This is where .22 Magnum makes sense for serious defenders. Even with today's prices, bulk packs often run far cheaper than 9mm or .45. You can spend the same amount of money and get twice the number of live fire repetitions. Over time, that difference translates into faster draws, smoother reloads, and muscle memory that sticks under stress. There's another layer here, too. During shortages when 9mm vanished from shelves or spiked over $1 per round, .22 Magnum stayed available at reasonable cost. Being able to keep training when others had to slow down is a quiet advantage few talk about. And training isn't limited to paper targets. Affordable ammunition means you can run failure drills, multi-target transitions, and low-light scenarios without worrying about burning through your wallet. Those extra hours behind the trigger don't just build confidence, they build survival skills that pay off when nothing else matters. Reason 7. Platform versatility. Few cartridges can live comfortably in as many platforms as the .22 Magnum. Revolvers, semi-auto pistols, lever actions, bolt rifles, compact carbines, this round runs smoothly in all of them. That kind of flexibility isn't just convenient, it's strategic. Picture a household where different shooters prefer different firearms. One carries a lightweight revolver, another likes a high-capacity pistol, and a third keeps a compact rifle in the truck. If all of them use .22 Magnum, ammunition becomes a shared resource. No sorting, no confusion, just one caliber, ready to feed every platform. Consistency matters too. Ballistics remain steady whether the round is fired from a short snub nose or long-barreled rifle. Accuracy tests often show tight groups across action types, meaning training with one gun builds transferable skill for the others. Even manufacturers are leaning into this advantage. Ruger, Henry, Kel-Tec, and Smith & Wesson all offer dedicated .22 Magnum firearms, while some models feature conversion kits to swap calibers with ease. That kind of adaptability is rare in the firearms world, and it highlights how overlooked .22 Magnum really is. One round, endless platforms, and the same performance across the board. Reason 8, all-weather reliability. Self-defense doesn't wait for clear skies. Ammunition left in cars, backpacks, or damp basements has to fire when called upon. This is where .22 Magnum separates itself from other rimfire rounds. The cartridge uses a stronger case wall, tighter crimping, and more consistent priming than the budget .22 long rifle most people are familiar with. In cold test, frozen ammo set at 0 degrees for 3 full days before chambered. Every .22 Magnum round went off without hesitation, while .22 long rifles showed multiple failures to ignite. Heat cycles told a similar story. After a month in simulated summer car conditions above 140 degrees, velocity spreads in .22 Magnum stayed tight, while cheap centerfire loads displayed softened primers and inconsistent burns. Water resistance adds another edge. Submersion tests reveal that .22 Magnum maintains far higher ignition reliability than ordinary rimfire. For truck guns or survival kits exposed to humidity, rain, or temperature swings, that resilience is invaluable. When people talk about trusting your life to a caliber, reliability is often overlooked, yet it's the foundation of self-defense. The .22 Magnum has proven it can sit for months in harsh environments and still deliver when it matters. Reason 9, suppress performance. Noise isn't just uncomfortable, it can be dangerous in defensive shooting. Indoors, a single unsuppressed gunshot can cause instant hearing damage and destroy your situational awareness. With the right setup, .22 Magnum becomes the quietest defense options you can run without sacrificing stopping power. Pair a Ruger American Rimfire or Kel-Tec CMR-30 with a quality suppressor, and the difference is dramatic. Subsonic loads cycle reliably, deliver consistent expansion, and keep decibel levels within a range that lets you maintain awareness of voices and movement around you. Unlike many subsonic 9mm loads, which often fail to expand at lower speeds, defensive .22 Magnum rounds still perform effectively when suppressed. Flash suppression is another hidden benefit. Muzzle flash indoors or in low light can blind you for critical seconds. Suppressed .22 Magnum platforms produce almost no visible flash, allowing you to keep your night vision intact. In a home defense scenario, that edge could be decisive. For those in areas where suppressors are restricted, integrally suppressed barrels and muzzle technologies still offer noticeable reductions in sound and flash signature. Quiet, reliable, and still lethal, suppressed .22 Magnum earns its place as the silent performer. Reason 10, weight and carry advantage. Every ounce matters when you're carrying gear. 100 rounds of 9mm weighs about 2.5 pounds. The same count of .22 Magnum tips the scale at barely over 1 pound. That's a huge difference for anyone building a bug-out bag, hiking kit, or lightweight carry loadout. Think about it in terms of endurance. A soldier, hunter, or backpacker knows that weight adds up mile after mile. Cutting the load by more than half without reducing round count means you can carry more ammo or use that space for food, water, and medical supplies. Ounces equal pounds and pounds equal fatigue. The .22 Magnum quietly solves that problem. It's not just about long treks either. For daily concealed carry, smaller cartridges allow slimmer magazines with higher capacity, while keeping the firearm lighter overall. 30 rounds of PMR-30 weigh less than 17 in a Glock 19. That translates into real-world comfort, the kind that determines whether someone carries consistently or leaves their pistol at home. Weight savings don't grab headlines, but they matter, and when one round gives you capacity for less burden, the advantage is impossible to ignore. Reason 11, dual purpose, defense and survival. Most handgun calibers do one job, defense. The .22 Magnum pulls double duty. Out of a rifle, it has enough reach and accuracy to take small game cleanly at 100 yards. Rabbits, squirrels, even varmints fall easily within its range. This means in a survival situation, the same box of ammo that protects you can also put food on the table. Trying to do that with 9mm or .40, those calibers are loud, heavy, and far less effective for hunting. With .22 Magnum, you're carrying a single cartridge that covers both roles without compromise. That's why many survivalists and preppers quietly stock it in bulk. One caliber simplifies logistics, cuts weight, and multiplies usefulness. It's not just theory either. Field tests show the round is accurate, flat shooting, and lethal on small game, while offering the velocity and penetration needed for defensive use. That versatility turns it from a niche cartridge into a true survival tool. When you're thinking long-term, adaptability wins. A caliber that can keep you alive in a fight and keep you alive in the wilderness deserves far more respect than it usually gets. Reason 12, the psychological edge. Stopping a threat isn't always about physics. Sometimes it's about perception. The .22 Magnum delivers a crack that is sharper and louder than most expect. That unexpected report, paired with its bright muzzle flash, often creates an immediate hesitation in attackers who assumed a tiny rimfire would sound weak. In reality, it commands attention. Defensive trainers point out that most gun encounters end without fatalities and often without even a hit. The appearance, sound, and shock of return fire are enough to change an attacker's mind. A lightweight pistol throwing fast, flat-shooting .22 Magnum rounds can deliver that shock effect in a way that belies its size. And when rounds do connect, the combination of cavitation and tumbling ensures that the damage is far greater than its reputation suggests. That creates confidence for the defender and doubt for the aggressor, a psychological swing that can determine the outcome before the fight continues. In the end, intimidation is not the goal. Survival is. But never underestimate the advantage of a cartridge that makes your opponent rethink their choices the moment it leaves the barrel. The .22 Magnum is small only in appearance. In effect, it feels much larger. Check out our next video where we reveal the most lethal .22 long rifle rounds you can buy in 2025.